talking before this about how like it can be such a mystery for not just for copywriters and designers and how to connect, but also for clients and how do they find copywriters and designers that work well together, and how do they go about asking the right questions to make sure they work together, and so many different things. So before we go into all that, just if you'd like to introduce yourselves, talk a little bit about your background and your expertise, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. Okay, I guess I'll
Maria,
go
ahead.
first. So I'm Maria Platusik. I am a rebrand strategist, branding, and website designer. I focus on messaging and positioning and all of the foundational brand strategy items. And then I help you make it look great across all platforms. I mostly help businesses who are at the scaling, growing phase because they know what they have right now won't necessarily get them to where they want to be. And I partner with them on that rebranding journey. And now I've been running my own branding focused studio for about 15 years, so 25 years total. Yep, I'm a dinosaur.
And Jill, tell us a little about yourself.
Yay! Well, I don't know how much. I think Maria knows some of my story, but I'm not sure you know too much of it, Rachel. I used to be an attorney in Scotland, and then we moved to the US. My husband is also Scottish. We moved to the US in 2009 and had a family, and when I was ready to start working again, I didn't want to go back to law school and sit the bar, deal with all those kind of things. And so I kind of fell into editing to start with for fiction authors, and then realized that they needed like their websites written, and I was like, oh, this bit's more fun, I like this bit more. And then kind of ended up going full circle after becoming a copywriter, where I now edit for copywriters, which means often, as well as writing these kind of things like website copy, I'm on the receiving end from copywriters of their website copy, which I check before they then send on to their clients. So I don't write a whole lot of website copy, but I see a lot of website copy from some really great copywriters, and I get to see the way that they wireframe, which we were talking about, and just different things that they do, which gives me lots of good ideas when I go to write website copy myself, because I have this like wealth of secret kind of knowledge of how people have done their own drafts, which I love. So yeah, I kind of focus on, from the strategy side, messaging, very similar to what Maria does, which is why we work well together, but we can talk about that later. So that brand foundation stuff from the verbal identity side of things, of messaging and brand voice. And then also still write copy for clients here and there, anything from website copy to, I have like a few retainers where I write more regular kind of content for them. And then, yes, editing for copywriters as well, which is often websites, but can be sales pages and all different kind of things.
Well, and yeah, you guys have so much knowledge. I can't wait to hear what you have to say, because I've been at this for 3-4 years, and before that I was a music teacher. So I've got that creative side, right? But just this whole networking, like entering the business world, is just so different. When you're in public education, you go to business and it's like, okay, how does this work? Oh, I don't want to be salesy. I don't want to be icky. How do I find people to collaborate with? I don't think I even knew that, I had to find people to collaborate with. When I very first started, I do remember the first copywriting course I took said, find a graphic designer. They didn't say website, just find a graphic designer, someone that can help you with, the copy. And that was really hard for me, as again, brand new, coming out of teaching. I don't know any graphic designers. So that's when I turned more towards email copy and writing emails, because I was like, I don't need to find a graphic designer for this. This is pretty straightforward. I did that for a while. And then I ended up like, my very first client was my mom. She had started a business. So I said, perfect, let me just write your website for you. And I went in to show it. And I, with like no graphic design or web design knowledge, I just used like other websites that I thought looked nice as a template, and then just tried to copy that on Show It. So I was doing it all kind of, and then also like sticking to email. And so this came up on LinkedIn because I've really been wanting to dive into more website copy. I was telling Jill that I've worked with another copywriter we both know who's very good at what she does. Seeing her do that and work with another designer, very well-known one, was like, okay, I need to figure out what are the secrets, not just as from a copywriter perspective, but also from that client perspective. Like, what do the clients need to know about hiring a designer and copywriter duo, and why is it important to hire both? I don't know who wants to.
And I don't know if Maria's been through this, but I've worked with a few different designers over the years, and like you're not always a good fit together. Maria and I work really well, I think, because we have that solid background of what brand identity is underneath it, which means I know if she's doing that side of it, it's fine. I know I'll get my questions answered, and I think probably vice versa. But yeah, like sometimes you have to trial and error it to see if you can find somebody who fits well with the way you work and has the kind of clients that you're happy to write for or design for or whatever that might be, you know, making sure that you've got the similar audience maybe. And that, yeah, that you have the creative space works on both sides, I think. Or, you know, like the balance of like, are you just being asked to fill out a block here as a copywriter? Are you being forced into what's expected of you? You know, somebody's prearranged what's expected of you as a designer, and you're like, hold on a minute, this doesn't work. So yeah, it's sometimes you have to try it out a little bit and go through a few options before you find a good fit.
I had the other side because I've tried lots of copywriters and I had to get the good fit, but I know a lot of designers too. And it's strange because I started off as a designer. I can design anything and everything, trade show signage, billboards, you know, packaging, you name it. I've designed it in 25 years. My hands have been in it or on it. What I realized when I was in design firms, depends on which ones I was at. There was ones that this is your role, this is all you're doing. The copy will go here, this will go here, and you're creating the shell. But each time I'm like, I need to know what it's going to say, because how can I create what it's going to feel like? And the vibe and the emotions if I don't know what it's saying. So I found it very combative even in the corporate world. And then some did get it right, where the copywriters and the designers creatively think of the ideas together, and then the vision, we're able to see it together, and then we're able to piece it together. And I think it needs to happen simultaneously, or it has to be very intertwined. It can't be separated. There can't be a severing point, because then it won't make sense. It just feels like you're filling in the blanks. Whether you're the designer or the copywriter, it still feels like filling in the blanks. So that's where the strategy part became alive, because when I started doing this for business owners, it was, okay, what's your colors, your fonts, your imagery, and who's this for? Why are we targeting them? What are we going to say? And what's the longevity? What's your call to I started asking those bigger questions. Zero people had answers for those. So that's, saw a big gap. And that's like, for me, it has to be the strategy and the reasoning behind it and understanding why we're even creating the piece in the first place. Then we can get the really great language to support it. But I already have the idea. So that's why I love Jill, because she fits in with the brand voice instantly, because I figured out this is the aim. These are the top 3 things we're positioning with. Here's what it needs to be like, sound like. And then she asks her amazing questions and then gets even deeper and then dialed in really nicely with what I've already gathered. So it has to work together. That is the biggest piece I've taken away from this.
And I think that the reason that we work is because Maria and I see strategy the same way. So I know that when she, like, it astounds me how 90% of what we do is the same, and then somehow, like, Maria made my logo, I love it, somehow she made this, somehow I do the writing, and she's like, how do you do the writing? Like, we don't understand how we do that 10% that goes, and it might be more than 10%, but in a way it feels like it's just that top layer of all of the foundation. And when I've worked with other web designers before, often what I find is that a web designer will be hired first, because people think, because they need someone to like visually create their site. But when I've worked with other designers where they've asked me to come in and they haven't asked those questions about strategy, then I'm asking the questions, but they've already created the visuals. So I start to ask questions and now there's a mismatch, but it's too late because I've been brought in too close to the end. And even if they're like, oh yes, I'd love you to ask the questions, it's like they don't think about that in the process of designing. So I'm like, well, I can make the copy great, but it looks weird in the visual that you've created because you didn't think about the foundations. So, because I think you can have a situation where either the designer or the copywriter knows brand foundations and brand identity. And I think that's one thing where if you're aware of brand identity yourself, you could find a designer who doesn't know a lot about that. But if they don't think they need that part in their process, that for me was where the red flag was. Is like, oh, if you just see this as a separate thing I do, then we're not going to be able to work together. But if you want me to pull out the identity stuff for you and then give it to you so that you can use it as you design, I'm happy to do that. But generally that didn't work. And that's why past kind of relationships with designers haven't really gone very far.
I'm curious, earlier talking about like we kind of already talked about this, but making sure like copy and design are aligned from the beginning. Do you like bring in the client right away and all three of you are talking, or is it like you're, or I'm sure maybe it depends on the client. Like how do you, when you two are working together with a client, what does the beginning of that process look like?
Yeah, so I'll start and then I'm sure Jillian can fill in. So I always start with the brand foundation first, so the strategy first. So before I can get into colors, styles, imagery, feelings, emotions, I need to understand who we're creating this for, why we're creating this, what's the bigger vision, all of those pieces. Those are the same pieces that Jillian needs to do her job too. Right. And any copywriter needs those pieces too. So I find that I do my due diligence and my homework and I really pave the way. But then, like, I can come up with a dummy headline and stick it in, but then it's obviously really fine tuned when Jillian gets there and makes it polished. Right. And that's the key piece. And Jillian can do it all herself as well. But I think it's a matter of she knows my process. I know her process. I know she's really good at brand voice and nailing the tone and cadence of the client as well. I find that's a really big piece of the puzzle because, whether they say, hey guys, or hello, or, hi friends, or hey, how they address the audience and how professional or formal or how informal, like she can really negate what that is just by interviewing them and asking some questions. And then the client needs it to feel like them as well. So as we went through this current client where his website will be launching next week, yes, a lot of things holding it, but it'll be launching next week. She was able to, he's like, maybe we can tone down that piece because but I don't want it to be too formal. So she's finding the sweet spot of where they want to be situated, but it has to start with strategy or else you're just painting the front door of a collapsing house as a designer.
So I think as you're thinking about this, if you're a copywriter or a designer, there's lots of ways that you can make that balance work. I think it comes down to what's best for the relationship you have. So when Maria has a client, she feels confident that she can bring me in at the end. I can get up to speed real quickly and then create copy that's going to work. Where maybe asking another copywriter to do that, they would be discombobulated and be like, but I need to use my own process before I can find out what I need. But like we know we can slot in together really well. Other ones might want everybody to be involved from the beginning, or a copywriter might want to run the strategy and bring a designer in later. So I think there's lots of ways that could work. And if you're somebody who's thinking about hiring in this situation, those are the kind of questions you might want to ask. Who's running the strategy? Is anybody running the strategy? Are you thinking about strategy? Because if you're not, that might be a bit of a red flag. If you're spending a lot of money on designers and copywriters and no one's taking ownership of the strategy, that would make me wonder what useful results are going to be coming out of it, so to speak.
Yeah. But let's move into the client side of things. When they're thinking about hiring, like, should they be asking, should they be looking at designers first, copywriters first, just whoever has the strategy? I mean, I think we've established strategy is the foundation. That's what we need.
100%.
But if they're like, okay, I need a website and I don't want to do an agency. They really just then the strategy. They need to find someone who understands strategy, whether it's a website designer or a copywriter. They need that foundation first before they can build it out.
My kind of gut feeling is that people often go to designers first because, and then something that sometimes frustrates me, Maria doesn't do this, but sometimes I see this is that a designer will sell that they will make you a website. And then they get to the end and they're like, can you just give me the text now to fill in on the page? And like when I hear this, I'm always like, that's like such an important part. And you're basically asking the person who runs the business, who is not a copywriter, to figure out how to use the words to sell. Could you just pop them in this space here? And I have sometimes been brought in that situation where they've been like, no, I cannot write that. But I think they're sometimes sold that what they're going to get is a website when they hire a designer, and the copy part is just not mentioned until it's too late down the process, and now you're being asked to fill in. You know what I'm talking about, Maria, right?
Yeah, so I post about this actually quite often because it is the common thing that people ask for, right? So if you think of it from the ideal client and their perspective, they're like, oh my gosh, I need someone to help me with my website. I need to update my website. That is the first thing that they ask for because that's what they know, right? where I'm here to interject and say, nope, you need to start with strategy first. Like it has to be strategy first. Then it's your actual brand visuals, like your evolution of the brand. And are we taking the same logo that you've had before? And I'm going to tell you 99.9% of the time, it's never the same logo because they've advanced, they've grown, they've changed, and what the strategy we create will not even be reflected in what they've had previous. And then from there, it's now, okay, let's develop the wireframes, the strategy for the website, the content that's going to be required. And one of the first questions I ask, are you confident enough to create copy for every single page of your website? And if they say, yes, no, I'm actually really great at copywriting, I might need an editor or someone to go through it. And I guide them through it. I create Google Docs. I give them from the brand strategy extract, here's where we can talk about these 3 things. And here, so I give them pretty good, solid templates. And I also provide it leading with examples of content. So I give them copy blurbs from, the competitor sites or, indirect or direct that are examples of here's an about section. This is pretty neat. Maybe we can create something similar, never to copy, but as for inspiration. So I do give them a lot of guidance because the copy is very important. Like it is so important, and it's copy then design. Like I don't know how else I can be clear about that, but how do you know what image you're supposed to be showing if you don't know what is being said in the copy below it? Because if you're talking about airplanes and are showing a shoe, I don't understand. Because it's literally they're filling in a template. And that never works.
And that,
I'm just going to say it can work when you're first starting out and you need something, quick and dirty out there. So and don't think you can't do that. 100%. If you need something quick and dirty, get it done. You need
the shoe, the dirty shoe.
You need the dirty shoe. But if you're advancing, you got to polish that damn shoe. Yeah. Like it has to be polished.
And that's also where sometimes Maria will have clients where they do their own writing, but they will hire me just to edit it up. And in that situation, I charge less. I don't read, sometimes I do read the strategy stuff a little bit, but generally I don't say that I'm going to read the strategy. I don't go and do any research of my own. I assume that what they've written is correct, and all I do is help, like maybe it's similar to what the editing that I do for copywriters in a way, because I'm making sure that the conversion techniques are in there, the headlines are punchy enough, because generally clients don't know how to write punchy conversion headlines. Of course they don't. Why would they know how to do that? So I will do that kind of stuff as well, and that's where I would agree is that's probably not going to be the best copy in the world, but if it gives you a website and it looks good, and in time you can change that copy and it gets something up on the page, and we've made it sound a little punchier, and I'm doing things like shortening the bullets, adding paragraph breaks, making more white space on the page, cutting what they write in by 50%. It's really what do we actually need to say here, and not just here's the whole long paragraph you want to tell somebody about yourself.
The bricks of text.
Yes, the big wall of text. So I also sometimes help with that for Maria. I've definitely had designers reach out to me before where their client has either they haven't brought it up, they've just said, can you now give me the text for this? And their client's given them a big wall of text. And we haven't got into this yet, Maria, but in the recent days, people will now ask ChatGPT to do that kind of stuff, and you'll get very big walls of text that come out of that. And then they've said, can you take this and now just fix it for them? And in those situations where it's a designer that doesn't necessarily do strategy, I'm I can't really, I can do an entire copywriting project for them, but now I'm going to have to research all that to write anything. And they're like, no, but I just need 3 lines to go here. And I'm like, well, that's not how, I can't do that for you. That's not how, if you've already figured out the strategy and you know roughly what's to go there, which is what Maria does, I can write you 3 lines for that. If you've not asked any of those questions and your client's given you a ChatGPT answer for this, then no, I cannot. I cannot just change that out for 3 lines that are going to work better. So
their conversation, isn't it?
Yes. How much time do you have? No, I'm joking.
And Maria, and that I think that's the other thing. When I have developed some good relationships with other developers, but Maria and I talk a lot behind the scenes with each other about, in general, when we have projects going or not, but especially when we have projects going. So although we do our pieces separately, we're really talking about our ideas for it, and we'll bounce things off each other, which is that, is it an airplane or a shoe? We're going to have a reasonable idea. Or it might be if I put an airplane here, would this work? And I'll be like, yes, and I could write copy that relates to this. And now we're all going on the same path together. So
Yeah, I like that. That's like what I like when I have like done subcontracting or done a little bit with like other designers. It's just nice. You don't feel like you're in a silo and you can just bounce ideas and you don't feel crazy or like you don't doubt yourself, because you have someone else saying, "Oh, this is good," or actually I have a better idea. Like it's so I love collaborating, but it's been like just in the forefront of my mind, just collaborating and how nice it is when you are a solopreneur or you're just working for yourself. You don't have a team, maybe you even have like a small team, but they're not. Maybe it's a VA or they're not doing that other stuff that for the clients, like the web
The
and design,
creative side,
the
like
creative stuff, right?
collaborating creatively, I think is key. I did a big
Yeah,
editing project for a client last year. I'm actually writing a case study because she gave me consent to write about it, where she was writing 2 website pages a week for 3 months. It was like intense. And so she's like, it was so useful to be able to bounce ideas off you and to make sure everything was following like that higher kind of understanding creatively of where we were trying to go, because she works on her own. So you
yeah,
do, I think, sometimes just need that creative back and forth with someone to be like, oh gosh, now you've said that, I hadn't thought about it, and it opens up like some new avenue. She always talks
yeah,
about it as the 1 + 1 = 3 kind of approach, that when two of you are doing it, more comes out of it. So
yeah.
I think I think as entrepreneurs and solopreneurs, you have to realize you don't have to do everything by yourself. And that was a tough one for me because you're like, if you take on help, it's like, well, are you really doing it by yourself? Is it really your business? Like these are just the jerk thoughts that your brain gives you. And I'm realizing 100% you can't do this by yourself. You need help. So whenever I need copywriting help, I have Jillian, like, I have and honestly, for developing the website, I don't love coding. So I have a developer that I've trusted and I love and I adore, and I use her to do the back end to make sure it's linking and proper and all of the things for functionality wise. So I do the strategy, I do the design, I help with the flow of content. I have someone to polish my content. I have someone to build it properly. So technically, I do have an agency, but I don't have direct employees, but I have contractors and I have lots of them. And whenever I need help for other things, I hire other contractors to help me as well. So you don't have to be alone. And when you collaborate, it just opens the door and expands your doors on who you can receive as clients as well. So I think that is something to consider too.
And I think we do often have that fear of, should we admit that somebody else is helping behind the scenes? But I honestly think clients like it when they know you have a stable relationship with someone else who brings expertise. You're not just trying to wear all the hats. So like Maria just rebranded her website, and I was just looking at it last week and I was loving that you now mention me and the developer on the site, because instead of it being a thing to hide you, it's a thing that you're proud of, right? And I honestly think that when clients see that, they see a different level of professionalism involved, which is, I have these areas of expertise, and instead of just trying to make the other things work, I make sure somebody else who's expert at that thing will come in and help make sure it works. So I think it presents much more confidence to clients when they see that you have a stable group of contractors and people who help in whatever that agency fashion might be. The developer that I work with in Europe also has me and the designer on her site for that same reason. And we definitely noticed an evolution in the types of clients and the number of clients coming once that all became kind of more public on the site.
Yeah, that transparency is important. I think people really appreciate that. It's just like when you see, it's someone who's a solopreneur and maybe they don't have a team and they're just saying we and us here at blah 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 agency, and you're like, but it's just you. Like, just let people
Yeah.
know. Like, it's
And
okay.
also it's okay to be like, I'm the main person here, I'm the one you contract with, but I have expert support that I use to make sure
Yeah.
that we're providing the best result you can possibly get.
People appreciate that when, like, I'll say to people like, hey, yeah, we can meet up and talk about what your needs are. And I know so many copywriters and designers, so if I'm not a good fit, I can find someone else for you. And clients
Exactly.
appreciate that. Their prospects, they appreciate that too. Like, she really wants it to be the right fit. So that's really important for all service providers to keep in mind.
Always.
Yeah.
And it's when some people are like, oh, I just need them to fill out the application form and then they're signed on. Like, I need that one-to-one conversation because that's the only way. Because my avatar is just like, it's personality based, like down to the T. And if I can't resonate with the person on the other end, it
Oh,
will
yeah.
stifle my creativity. I found that someone who's like really high energy, like I don't want to put a whole industry there, but like mostly the fitness industry, like they're high energy and oh my God, we're going to do that. As an introvert, I get so depleted after the conversation that I'm like choked out. And I'm like, I cannot work with that type of personality. So it's actually, you have to have a conversation. I know people are like, oh, fill out an application, whatever. I need that conversation. Even if it's 15 minutes, I can see if what resonates and what doesn't, and then I'll offer another call. And it's for both of us, right? Because I want to be able to perform at my best and deliver my best. And if I find that, like, I feel something like, as Jillian was sharing, that feels like it's choking you or holding you back and not letting all the creativity be free, that's a big one, right? Like, and again, it's trust. Like your ideal audience, they will trust you. They'll be like, you know what? I trust your judgment. I really appreciate you sharing this. I really want your impact, your insight on this. Please share. To me, those are the words you want to hear from your client on the other end, is that they trust what you're offering and what you're doing. And it does exist. So definitely always aim for that. That would be what I would
Well, and
share.
it's interesting because I hadn't really thought about this, but I've never not been a good fit with a client of Maria's when I've had to go on and do their copy. So we may have different spaces, like maybe I would be okay with those high energy clients, usually I am as well. But I know that if Maria has filtered out that this person's going to work for her, it's going to work for me too. So that could be a red flag if you're working with a new collaboration. Is like, well, are you going to be okay with their client, or is it going to be someone that you're uncomfortable with, either creatively because you don't have a good fit match personality wise, or maybe industries or something where you don't feel comfortable writing for. So I know that Maria's not an ideal client, like we have a heavy overlap there and it's going to work. Yeah, that might be worth thinking about if you're getting into a kind of repeat relationship with somebody.
Yeah, I was recently talking to someone who we were connected by a mutual friend, and she's a designer. And I went to her website, and her copy that she wrote, we talked later, I thought she wrote it, was very similar to mine. Like it was just very similar. I was like, I think we'd be a good match, for working together, because it was so similar. So like we obviously have the same type of client and style and brand voice, even like as a designer and copywriter. So that made us like, and then we met and we had a good vibe. And she's very introverted, I'm a little more extroverted. I thought about like her as like being a really good potential collaborator because of that. And then I've met with other designers and others who don't seem to quite have that strategy process in place. Like they try to do their website in a week and they want to just get that quick win. And I'm thinking like, ooh, unless you have the strategy ready to go, maybe prior to that, like that's really hard to do. And that same designer also, I was thinking about her as you were talking, Maria and Jill, about the bricks of text. Like it was the client copy and none of it fit inside of the, my stuff. And yeah. And I'm like, oh, okay. So like
yeah, so you're already bouncing off those, you're starting to see where your boundaries are, right? You're like, oh, that's not how I would want to work. That's because there was a second designer too, another one that said she does website in a week thing, and she was like, oh, I'd love to work with you. And I'm thinking to myself, how are we going to work together in a week? Like I just don't see that happening. Can I do other mini projects in a week? Like on my Instacop, sure, but like in a week, copy design, I just don't see that happening, and she also mentioning templates, and I pretty much just have templates, and I'm like,
I can pull the curtain back there. It's never done in a week. It doesn't last very long. I'm gonna pull the curtain back. It's usually templated, heavily templated, and a lot of the work is done prior to. But honestly, the main piece that I highlight, and that was one of the reasons like I chose the developer I did, and I can work with Jillian, is like, yes, everybody has timelines and like, okay, by this date, we want to get this done. By this date, we want to like, and I have those benchmarks. And then also you have to realize there's humans that you're working with and life that happens and situations that arise that are not part of the strict guided timeline, that you have to have, there has to be flexibility, right? There has to be, like right now in the situation I'm in, my developer fell ill. Now my client's dealing with a personal issue, so that's pushing it out. Am I supposed to be here? Well, no, this was the date it was supposed to. Of course not. Like they're human. Like that's why empathy is on my first page of my website. Right.
And also, I think when you're thinking about your business, and especially when you're going deep in the strategy, if they're rebranding, which is a lot of what Maria does, is help them level up once they've got to a certain stage, you get kind of a lot of existential questions about how you feel about your business and life and where things are heading. I would be concerned personally trying to get a website out in a week, because have they really thought through the implications? Like, you know, the fact that Maria leads with empathy on the start of her page, it probably took a while to get to the point of really understanding that that's what you wanted to lead with and why. Like, that's not a snap decision that's made in a 30-minute phone call on a Wednesday after a strategy call on a Monday, with copy coming out on a Thursday and the website going live on a Friday. Like, I can't even, I would worry that the end result is not representative of what you, like, things will have developed over time, and you'll be left with a version that was like your draft one, but now it's live, and you're like, but hold on, I have more things I've thought about since we started this conversation. So
yeah, I would say it's after multiple conversations. And then I don't want to get into ChatGPT, but I've actually added a disclaimer on my questionnaire to not use ChatGPT to fill it out.
That's a good idea.
Strategy has to involve thinking.
It has to involve, it needs to come directly from you, your voice, where you're screwing up, where you're like, I can't figure this part out. Here's what I'm thinking. This is all I got. Perfect. Then I know I
the
can
experts,
focus
like,
here.
That's our job, to let us do our job.
And it's like when they filled it out, and it was like my longest in-depth brand strategy guide questionnaire. It was like 28 pages. I was like, whoa. And it was all copy and pasted ChatGPT. And I'm siphoning through this, and I'm like, okay, maybe this piece and maybe this. And then I had to redo the whole questionnaire live with my client on the call, because I had like all of it. I wish I had the sample here. I had 1,000 questions on the back of every page. So the computer can share some parts of it. It can share pieces of it, but I want the real and the raw and the confused, so I know what I need to help you through. Right. And I think that's the one of the biggest pieces. And ChatGPT doesn't give you that. It doesn't, like, I've seen it too many times now to know that it doesn't give you that. And it won't guide you. Like, I've had someone say, oh, I have this amazing questionnaire. You can fill it in. It can be your brand strategist for you. And they sat in and they filled it out. And I was like, oh, yes, my job's still safe. Because I'm like, you see those 3 that they filled in there? Those would not be their competition, not any of those at all. They think it's their competition, but I know, because of what they said on previous calls, that this would be their competition. It's how invested are you into the client and how much research you do, and it cannot be done in 1 week. Like, because that was multiple conversations for me to extract to the point where he's like, yes, I love that. That makes sense. Let's focus on that. And that came after probably 3 different weeks of conversations.
And I think, to be clear, and Maria, I know, agrees with this, some people are at the stage where a website in a week is fine, but that is not a website that involves heavy strategy. And that might be like your beginning website. You don't really have strategy yet because you haven't really tested your ideal client.
Yep.
You haven't done enough selling of your service or your product to really understand those kind of things. But I guess the thing that I always want to reflect to clients is make sure then that you're at that price bracket matches. Because if you're being sold the thing at the same value as the strategy ones, but you're getting in a week with no strategy, then that's where you're missing out in the process. But if it's a cheap thing that's allowing you to do it quickly, great. And as a copywriter or a brand designer, do you want to be like, maybe helping quickly get businesses on their feet without much strategy is your sweet spot and exactly where you want to work. And there's no judgment about that.
Yep.
The level that Maria and I do is different. And as someone who's thinking about bringing a website into the world, is like, have you been in business for a few years? Are you tired of the surfacey thing and you're ready to really represent who you are on the page? Then let's do strategy. Or are you at the beginning, in which case don't fall for like the heavy prices. Make sure what you're getting reflects the fact that something is being put together just for the short term until you figure out what your business really is.
The only thing I would add is that you can always start with strategy. Doesn't matter if it's year 1, year 0. You can 100% create yourself some focus and say, you know what, I'm going to pick this industry or this target. I'm going to, at least you keep it broader, right? When you're starting out, you want to cast that bigger net, catch lots of fish, figure out who you hate, who you don't, what you don't hate, and what you love doing. But there always can be strategy that you start with. And then for me, it's you refine it, right? So if you build it out from the start, now you don't have to do it all over again. It's now, oh, I realized I like this better. I like these offers better. And then you're just refining it year after year. You're refining it. And majority of my clients do that too. Like, it's not like we're entrepreneurs. Do we ever really make up our mind? Like we're always changing, we're always evolving.
That makes me feel better. Okay.
Always changing. You're always evolving. You're always interested. Like someone with ADHD, I never could pick. She's like, oh, but you'd be fantastic for this industry. Pick this industry. And I'm like, all of my body was vibrating that I couldn't select it. And then I realized, oh, wait, you don't have to niche down based on an industry or a target audience. There's a million ways to niche down. And that's what I've realized is that my sweet spot is figuring out what everybody else's sweet spot is, and that you can ebb and grow and ebb and flow, sorry, and grow. And it's like you have to build versatile brands to flow along with you. And that's my key is sustainability, right? Like, okay, this works 2 years from now. Is it going to work for you 10 years from now? Well, let me know what your big picture goals are, and then it can. You need your values and your big picture goals. And
which
then
is where the existential crisis could come from.
I was going to ask, are the clients like, are they surprised by this entire process? Is that existential thing that happens? Like, is that something that's expected or not? I would say not so much.
I'll share mine. I'm sure Jillian has her own stories too. For my clients, it's always the phase or stage that they're at. And they are certain that this is the next chapter for the next 2 to 5 years. They know that this is the thing that they're going to want to support, their bigger vision, who they want to help, how they want to serve it. They know that this is the thing. And those are the people I can help the most because I need to be able to see your vision to help with growing that vision and partner with you. A lot of the times, the past few have been newbies. They have nothing out there. They've worked 25 years as a teacher, or they've worked 25 years as a therapist and now want to get into coaching. But they know that this is the next thing that they're going to be setting a lot of time and energy in. Then I can help you because, again, it's your big picture vision. When they're getting through it, my favorite client testimonial was when I finally caught up to Maria's version of my business and stopped having the existential crisis, I realized this is where I needed to be. Fortunately, I can foresee it, right? Like if someone tells me things, I can like, yep, I can see that. No, don't position here. Why the hell will we do that? Already go here. And I place them higher. It's hard for them to get to sit at the higher level because they don't feel ready, but 100% they're ready. They just don't know that they are. So as we go through this process, I give them all the facts, the data, everything, all the accolades. And then all of a sudden they're like, shit, I can do this. And that's the best part is because their confidence is now built up with their brand and they can play at the higher level. So that's the fun part. That really is fun.
That's the thing, like doing everything yourself, even if you are a copywriter and designer, like getting that out, that person who can look at it from like the bird's eye view and see. I had Delia Bunk help me with my positioning because I was like, I know we're both copywriters, but like I just need someone else to give me some feedback. And you know, we work together and like, so how can you know, what do you see here? Of course, she gives me the questionnaire and all that stuff, but then she's able to like look at it because you're just so close to it. Even if you can design your own website or you can write your own copy, like it's not really serving you to do so all the time, you know, like it's really, really beneficial to bring somebody else in to help you with that. And that way, like you said, Maria, you can go further because you get the person to validate your thoughts and to you know, confirm any ideas, big ideas that you had, and like, you know, go for it. Like, you just need that cheerleader sometimes too. And that's, I feel like that's what I kind of play that role as. I'm just like the cheerleader. I'm like, you got this.
Do
like,
this, yeah.
Yeah.
Like stamp down that imposter syndrome sometimes is like, it's not, you're worried that you can't do it, but that doesn't mean that you can't do it. You just, you know, there's a bit of a fear going on there. And I do this a lot with copywriters, like help them find their voice because we're so used to hiding behind clients' voices and they definitely go through an existential crisis as we're like, well, who are you? Who do you want to be on the page? And it's, maybe with voice it's a little more, it feels a little more personal, like you're getting under their skin as you ask them how they want to sound and how do they sound, and then they start to think about what other people think about them and what are they hiding because they're worried that people will judge them. So we definitely go down some rabbit holes. But everyone comes out the other side. It's a process. And yes, it's like reflecting back to you the things that you can't. You're too close. You're like inside the jar. You're too close to see it. So reflecting that back and letting them see a bit more light rather than being stuck just very close to the screen.
And just to highlight that, it's taking me 8 years to rebrand my own website because, you know, the cobbler in their shoes and that whole freaking scenario. I'm building everybody else's brand and website. Mine was still working and doing good, but I didn't love it. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go through my entire process myself. And that's what I did. I'm like, I'm doing it for everybody else. Let me do it. So I took my blinders off and then exposed the belly and like went through. I'm like, oh, and was able to arrive where that's where empathy came into play. And I'm like, I'm not hiding that anymore. I want people to know that I'm empathetic. I understand. I can't hide that part of me. It shows up every time. So there's no point of hiding it. And working with businesses that see that as a positive as opposed to a negative, that's exactly what I want. So if someone's like, oh, empathy, like, you know, you need to be cutthroat, get this done, get it done. I'm like, nope, not for me.
Get out of here.
So again, I'm weeding and that really helps specify and be specific on who I want to work with. But going through my own process, it was tough, like me, myself. Right. And then of course I got Jillian to take a peek and a lot of other people to take a look at it because again, you know, this is what you've done, but it's good to get that support and other people's opinions, right?
Definitely.
Yeah, it's that close. My dog. It's that collaboration. Going back to collaboration, right? Like just that's like just weaved in throughout this whole conversation is like you can't do it alone. Like none of us can.
Thank you so much for doing. Is there anything else you want to add as we wrap up? Any last words?
So
We covered a lot. So
We did. Yeah. I just honestly, if you find someone who is truly aligned, then hold on to them because it's a sign to keep going with them and growing with them. And I've known Jillian, I don't know how long now. It's a few
like
quite
5-6 years.
I was gonna say a lot of years. And we started off like networking together and doing, I think it was like a live we did together.
In COVID, we did a
In
live.
COVID, yes, we did. So it was like a COVID live. And it's like you never know where things are going to take you, but when you build those relationships and you find really good partners to help you grow your business and you're supporting other people, like so that's my favorite part. It's like both moms, both entrepreneurs, both female business owners. I love that part that I can bring us together. So why not collaborate with other great people? And it lifts you up and lifts them up at the same time. So there's nothing wrong that can go there if you find aligned partners.
I agree. What she said.
awesome. Well, thank you so much for this conversation. It was awesome. And if I don't know, if anything else comes up in my brain, I'll be sure to reach out. And for anyone listening or watching, whatever I decide to put this, where can they serve?
Yeah. So the easiest one for me probably is on Instagram. I'm at Jill Hill Edits, Jill with a G. Or you can also find me on LinkedIn, also under Jill Hill Edits. And then my website name is a bit of a mouthful because it involves all of my names. So I shall leave you those easy social media links and get to me that way.
So I will share my website because I am proud of it and I just relaunched it. And this designer got fancy new shiny shoes. The cobbler got shiny shoes. It's platusicdesign.com. So it's my last name. So platusicdesign.com. And all of my handles are at Platusic Design. So all on every social, you can find me on there as well. And I'm happy to chat.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Yay.
Thank you, Rachel.